Yeah.
Pledge? Do we do a pledge?
I don't.
Please rise for pledge. I pledge allegiance
To
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call.
Jim Thompson.
Present.
Jeff McCullough.
Here.
Ron Stoneman.
Here.
Seth Pratt.
Here.
Okay.
Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Nays? All right, pass that. New business, A, approval of the minutes for March 23rd, 2023. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
A second.
All in favor? Yes?
Aye.
Nays? Passes. B, DT energy easement. Jeff, do you want to?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Along Robinson Street, ETE Energy has a valve station, and it's enclosed with a masonry enclosure. They've got a current easement for that existing facility, and they would like to add on cathodic protection. And cathodic protection essentially protects the gas mains and appurtenances from any stray electrical currents that can corrode and deteriorate the pipe. They don't have room within the current enclosure and within the current easement, so they're asking for a 5-foot by 5-foot space off the southeast corner. So basically amending that easement to add a 5 by 5 square foot space where they could simply install that equipment.
So they don't have the room in there, 15 by 15.
Correct.
Any other questions on this topic in relation to it?
So I had conferred with the city's attorney to see that the current easement literally falls or straddles the line between the school property to the north and Sands Park to the south. So I wasn't quite sure which entity should be responsible for approving or denying it, but thought this was the first place to start since it's certainly within the park. And then, Bill, I think our intention was with this group's action, then the next step was we would take that to city council as well.
Yep, and then you would take it to MAPS.
Yep.
So it'll be a recommendation from this board to our respective boards.
So I'm looking probably for a motion for that recommendation.
Well, is there they wanted it there, they couldn't take it to the north, go to the northeast corner and have it just basically on the right of way? Or they don't want it on the right of way?
I don't know the specific design implications, but this was the least impact and the most effective location for this improvement.
Yeah, we could show them that one. Okay.
And they'll be a building.
No.
What will the structure be?
I don't know if they had a picture in this packet of what it would look like. I believe it's just a piece of equipment that is above ground. I don't believe it'll be enclosed.
So do we have to worry about putting something around that? If it's kind of on that line, where does that relate to the playground if children are out there? Because we wouldn't necessarily want kids climbing all over it.
Yeah, it's kind of out of the way of that playground because
Okay.
there's already a slope and it's
Yeah.
kind of up above.
Well, that's what I was assuming, but I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure. Because I guess I was envisioning some type of a structure as well around it.
Well, if everything's underground, I guess it doesn't matter. But
It's above.
A lot of times, I don't know specifically about this, what exactly it would be, but a lot of times they will put them below ground and you don't even see them. I believe there's actual anodes, there's sacrificial anodes that get changed out every so often. And I believe that's what this apparatus would do, is hold that
That's the one,
anode.
yeah.
Kind of like things on your boat, basically.
Exactly, same concept,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I know what you're both talking about.
So you're looking for a motion?
Looking for a motion, and that motion, just for clarity, will be for a recommendation to take it back to our governing entities for discussion and potential approval.
So I will reach out to DTE if this entity recommends approval before it goes to the other city council and the board. I'll see if I can get a photo of, or an example of what would be above ground.
Yeah, that would be great.
Fair.
So Jim can answer all the questions that he'll get.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second,
All in favor, yes?
Yes?
yes.
Nays? That passes. Now we have teen center request, C. Is there some insight that can be provided on this? Bill?
Yeah, so we've had a couple meetings. Prior to the furnace, we also received repairs and wishes. The city does provide an appropriation every year to the teen center. They submit a budget, we approve it. We were getting some of these requests. So it was outside of the contract, but it's an old contract back in '92 about typically the burdens on the AAY to do some of these things, but I thought this is something going on in Sands Park. The Sands Control Board could probably discuss some of these things, but my discussion, I would think that they would provide this in the appropriation request the next year, but I wanted this board to also be aware of the things going on at the teen center. So,
Right, and we've had some discussion on this item too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Any reflection on that conversation that?
so I appreciate we talked about potentially splitting the cost of the furnace in that contract between MAPS, AAY, and the city. It addresses major exterior repairs being covered by MAPS and the city, but it doesn't address major interior repairs like a furnace. But city council voted to approve buying the furnace. The cost, we had 3 bids, the low cost, and it's actually being installed today, yesterday and today. The low cost was $8,479.59. And Ron, when you and I talked about it, you said that you may be interested in not paying for this, but maybe deducting half from our contribution to the demo of the tennis court. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I will bring that conversation to the board
Okay.
and see what appetite they have for that, but I will campaign for that.
Okay.
Any other questions related to the teen center? Discussion?
I just have a question. On their wish list, they talk about Wi-Fi. Is there a way, I mean, I'm not a tech person, but is there a way that we could somehow look at once the school, I mean, I understand that building might not be used right now, but eventually if you guys have Wi-Fi in that building, or is there a way that they could somehow connect on the cities if there was an extender or something where maybe that could help with that cost for them if they could connect to one of our Wi-Fis?
Yeah, I can talk to the tech on that. There's a lot of mandates and firewall
Yeah.
configuration that's required for the district.
Yeah.
And that may be a greater expense to replicate than
Yeah.
the savings.
Right.
I understand the gesture, that's.
Yeah, I'm just thinking just to look into it. I don't know what that would look like.
I'll talk to KBX
Yeah.
about that.
That'd be great. Thank
Yep,
you.
Thank you. All right, on to old business. A, tennis courts, bullets of future use discussion and removal quotes. Jeff?
So we had discussed this quite a bit at our last meeting. The city did engage our engineer Spicer to put together a very simple document for demolition. and then also lay out a potential sidewalk for the east side of Robinson from 7th to 8th Street. That also would require some fill material and dodging a couple trees and signs. So Lucas from Spicer is here. He put together those the plans, solicited to, what, 3 or 4 local contractors last month. We've gotten one price back, one actual bid back. The demolition price on that is pretty in line with what we had estimated for it and budgeted. The sidewalk number, in my opinion, is higher than what I would expect to pay. But it's also not the optimum time of year to receive prices on that. They stated that they were only able to get one price from a concrete subcontractor. Do you want to do that information?
If I could, before you get started, Bill, can we have a little history? We had an evaluation done for courts.
So there was an estimate done by Spicer back in 2014. It was then updated 2018. I contacted, it was a company that does, basically it's taping and then resealing independently. I thought maybe they could do something there. He told me that it wasn't a good candidate for it. So I think we're at the point now where it's basically, are we going to demo at the site? I think there's interest of varying, to do tennis courts again. Pickleball's been coming up a lot. I think the commission's had some discussion about various things, expanding the skate park, and I'll let you talk about that. But I think the first step, just basically after years of discussing this, is probably the demo and then we can, if it's going to be a tennis court or a pickleball, we can go from there.
Thank you
So
for that.
even a little bit deeper than that, I recall, don't quote me on the year, but in the 2005, 2006 timeframe.
You were about 12, weren't you?
Thank you. The city engineer, Wade Trim, at the time, did a full evaluation of those courts, and that was the last time they were resurfaced. And I remember that Wade Trim was stating those courts are really past the ability to resurface and get any longevity out of them. Probably within 6, 7, 8 years later, the city started looking at how to finance completely renovating those courts, and was working with, I think it was actually called the Manistee Tennis Association. I don't know if anybody was here, was a part of that, but they approached the city and said, man, we use these courts twice a week in the evenings, and there's got to be a way. And so I know the city spent over a decade trying to find a source of a grant or some association that could help with renovating those. And there's been small parts. I mean, like the community foundation would be a possibility, but certainly couldn't pay for the full renovation. And then for the past 10 years, Spicer's updated those estimates twice. We did apply for the city did budget some money. We did apply for a grant to renovate those, and the community foundation went back to the tennis coaches in the community, tennis players in the community, and because we had submitted our grant application to renovate those courts but stripe them as tennis and pickleball, and the pickleball group said no way, they're not compatible. The tennis group said no way, not compatible.
But let's not go down that road, sure, right?
But the community foundation had a very, very robust committee that they formed to make those determinations.
Yep.
And what they ended up doing is they granted money towards Manistee Township to renovate their tennis courts into pickleball. And they recommended that the Sands Park courts were so deteriorated that it would be a better investment to go down to First Street and renovate those 4 courts as tennis. And so that's kind of where it's been, and we've still been trying to find a good source of money to renovate those.
Okay.
But like we discussed at our last meeting, in the interim, until we either find that money or we find a new purpose for those, the courts are dangerous. And my fear is that somebody's gonna get injured on those.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. Thank you for the update, the history lesson. I think that represents the due diligence that's important in this process, so thank you. If you have some information related to the quote or the situation, let's hear that.
Yeah, Jeff did a pretty good job of explaining all the history behind that. I have copies of the plans too, if you guys wanna have a copy of those.
And what are these plans?
These are the plans
make
for the
sure
sidewalk.
we pull up the plan.
It's kind of the area that was discussed to be removed.
I think it's these. That second one down. Thank you.
So I think really the project is kind of two different things to talk about combined with this quote. The first was basically the permitting and the soil erosion and mobilization to do the demolition of the courts. And that included the staircases, some guardrail that's there that would be salvaged, the fencing all the way around it, and then I think there's like one little structure. And that cost was $12,800. The variable really is what needs to be restored there, because I think that cost on Swiderski's quote was $18,650 total, but that could range from them going out there to do leveling for the whole area, topsoil seeding. You know, Jeff and I talked about maybe the city could supply topsoil or something, but there's also been history in conversations that I've had with Jeff and others that maybe the courts don't go back as topsoil and seed. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now. Is
So the 12,800 does demolition, but it doesn't topsoil, seed, or restore anything.
exactly.
So it just removes it, period.
Yeah.
It just removes it
You get a construction site there.
and leaves it blank.
Is that include the fence and?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it would wipe it out. I mean, and then it would just be, you know, sand that's not graded. You know, it
Yeah.
looks like the beach before it's graded.
Is there a recommendation, Jeff, or?
Well, I don't think we should leave it raw.
Okay.
I don't think we can leave it raw. I think that would be
Oh,
irresponsible.
I agree. Are you recommending to take the quote? Is the city interested in participating?
Well, I believe that it needs to be restored at a minimum with topsoil unless there's a end use. There's been a lot of discussion at the Parks Commission level, but I don't think there's been a consensus yet. There's been some concession or some conversations at the council level, but I don't think there's a consensus of what that property ends up being.
No, and I think that's beyond this discussion today.
Right.
Related to, I think our best position is getting this out of there and restoring it to a safe situation.
Which to me means demo, topsoil,
See,
seed.
okay,
And
and
then
that's included in this quote.
and then filling in the slope enough to allow that sidewalk to be constructed.
Okay,
The caveat is, and we were talking just before you walked in, that this is not the optimum time to get bids, is
Okay.
what we're finding out from our contractors. So we've got one price back. They've said they think they can do better on the concrete side of it
Okay.
because they only got one number.
well, it wouldn't be done this year, so they're forecasting what cement would be next in the thaw, right?
I think we should rebid it in March.
Yeah, right.
Or
So,
May construction.
can I ask, is that sidewalk in the road right away, or is it on Sands Park?
It is entirely within the road right of way.
So, it's not a district responsibility necessarily, because it's not part of Sands Park. I'm not saying we wouldn't participate, but I just want to make that, I'll get that question.
Yeah, it's certainly within the right of way.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Just to add to that too, when I designed that sidewalk layout, we connected it to the site plan for the Kennedy development as well. So right now, that project ends right at that DTE structure that we were talking about. And then this project would continue that, so.
So, and just to be clear, when the school and the city have worked together for almost 2 years on the particular Kennedy site and footprint, and we worked with their engineers and architects and looked specifically at how is traffic gonna flow, what do we expect pedestrian flow to be, and try to make the site plan, and even the city's planning to do upgrades to Sixth Street, to make those two projects mesh and make it optimized for the public. The one gap was that there was not a sidewalk connection from the school down to 8th Street. And we thought if we could fill the slope in and we could make enough room along the street level, it would create that opportunity. So this project kind of created the sidewalk opportunity. The sidewalk need was kind of emphasized when we reviewed traffic patterns around the renovated school.
So
I just have to talk to our council if, because we get money to, for kids and our property. Now I'm spending potential money that's not our property. So I'm not saying I just got to answer those questions. And please don't take my discussion and questions related to that we're not interested. I just clarifying. And,
It'd be great to have that sidewalk in there.
Oh, yeah, and we've appreciated the partnership with the city related to Sixth Street and overall support for the project. So I just have to get that together.
Yeah, and the conversation we had, I think it was at our last meeting in March, was I've got a budget line item for the demo of the tennis courts at $20,000. And the school stated maybe they'd be interested in participating in that.
Yep.
I suggested if the school was interested in participating in that, maybe we could kind of double down and add the sidewalk in and cover both of those needs.
I certainly respect the proposal.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Jeff, is there, with this in mind, if we were to put something where the tennis court structure is right now, down the road, to replace it, is there room right now for those sidewalks, or would we have to move a structure back further because of the footprint?
I think it would still maintain enough room if we wanted to put courts, for instance.
I'm just thinking, because on the other side of that, you have parking lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So are we gonna have to dig up parking lot
So
eventually?
think about this, you've got the tennis courts at a level,
Yeah.
then you go down to the parking lot and you go up to the street. So if we move the street out a little bit, adjusting that elevation actually probably creates the same amount of space that's there today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we laid out the sidewalk too, it's between 1 and 2 feet off the back of curb, so it's pretty
Yeah,
close to the
I
road.
figured it was gonna be pretty close to the
We
road.
kept it tight. I'd like to see it 5-6 feet at least, but we kept it tight.
Yeah, that would have added a lot more, well, for sure.
Yeah, keeping the snow clear that close to the road is
Right.
gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, I think the surprising thing that I had was just that, that right of way. I figured there was right of ways, and I just didn't put two and two together until I started looking at it, here's the sidewalk goes, like, whoa, that's in the right of way, it's not on, basically the property we're responsible for, so.
Yeah, I'm positive that we can't use bond funds there. It would have to be general funds if we participate. Yep. Any other discussion? So, we have, looking for a motion to recommend our entities to review the bid.
So I'll make a recommendation that we review the bid with the understanding that we're probably gonna put it back out for more bids, for better prices on that.
Will you do that just for the sidewalk or for the
Well,
project?
if we're gonna do it for the sidewalk, I'd kinda like to get, I mean, I understand what we're all saying and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse on it, but I guess I would like to get an actual quote for the resurfacing, if it's potential, or just get something in writing that says it's not, because so many community members have come to individual council members and said, can those courts be resurfaced? So I think it's worth, if we're gonna put it back out for bid on the sidewalk, just to get somebody to say yay or nay and get a price on that. Chances are it's probably not gonna work, but it has been asked by a lot of community members if we could do that.
You did that, right? I mean, that's the information that Kelly forwarded to us earlier today.
That was for repairing it. Yeah, I couldn't get a repair number on that.
I'm not sure, but like some people have said, there's a process, and they've said, I've lived in communities that have done it where they come in and they somehow dig up what's there and they like put it in a machine and then they spit it back out somehow. I'm not sure. That's way outside of my field, but they're like, there's a whole process to it. And I don't know if there is or isn't, but I just think maybe it's worth exploring.
Well, the thing that makes me, I think it's worth exploring, but the thing that makes me nervous, when you look at that, it's got all kinds of cracks, and there's something the
Yeah.
matter with that subsurface there that's causing that. And
Oh, the 2018.
kind of clean it off and put it there again, you're gonna be in the same boat in a few years unless you figure out what's causing that problem.
Well, it's, honestly, that's an asphalt base, so it's the age of it. I think they're made of two different materials, one's concrete, one's asphalt.
Okay.
But it's no different than a roadway. You know, we've got a structure here that's over 50 years old, and it just doesn't resist the freeze thaws, and the cracks have been filled by my staff and so many community volunteers for so many years. They just keep getting wider and deeper, and
Yeah, I've been involved with putting these things together, and there should be drainage and so forth under there, so the moisture doesn't react, that the lack of moisture won't have this freezing and expansion thing going on. So I don't know if this has that or currently or not, or
Right.
what's there, but I guess we have a motion for more information.
If I may,
Yeah,
so this is that 2018 updated quote. So they had, and I know Sean was dealing with this a lot, but this is for renovation, and it looked like it was about 55,000 per court, and then below was new construction for a court, which was, it was 62,900. So there's a little bit of a savings with renovation, having Spicer do bid specs for it. We'd have to pay design. I don't know if it's 10% on that or 15, but that would be the next step, is to have probably Spicer do an actual, specification to put out to bid for it, which would be, if you were to estimate, it'd be,
For rehab?
for rehabbing.
Yeah, I would probably say probably 15% of that, I would think.
So there's a cost involved with,
going, for researching that.
I thought the last
To bid it out.
the last discussion we had on this, that rehab, a true surface rehab wasn't an option. We had to put a new surface on it, and the only thing we really could rehab was keeping the fencing, which I know we both agree doesn't
worth
look
that.
good.
Yeah.
yeah.
So as your professional opinion, what do you think we have to work with there?
I don't think you can do what we did on First Street down on these courts. I mean, there's no way. Especially the asphalt court, which I think is the north one, there's cracks that are 3-4 inches wide. I mean, you just can't repair that. When we have that on a road, like Jeff was saying, that's a reconstruction project because of the sub base and the drainage. And I haven't really looked too close because I think Sean was doing that before. But the concrete one, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a chance to do some like joint repair on some of the cracks. I don't know how bad it is. There's still a cost with that as well. And I don't know if it's worth it to do joint repair rather than just redo the whole thing the right way.
I'm not in favor of throwing good money after bad, or whatever the saying is, so.
Yeah,
And
Band-Aid.
I don't know if, for a repair, that the contractor would warranty that work. And I think we could get that warranty by spending more money and getting that done
The right way.
the right way by design. And so those are my concerns.
I think even if you were to do some sort of repair or rehab on it, it's still gonna need to be maintained.
You
So
didn't-
you're gonna be talking about this in 5, 10 years again.
Yeah, you didn't solve the causation.
Right.
So my suggestion is, because we didn't receive 3, 4 bids, we didn't receive multiple bids. The one bid we did receive thinks that they could do better if it was closer to spring and they had better concrete numbers. My suggestion would be that we don't accept that bid and we rebid it in February, March. And during that time, if there's other things that we want to do to feel more comfortable about it or study it, that we've got some time to do that. My opinion from everything that I've been through, those courts need to be rebuilt. They need to be rebuilt. The community needs tennis courts, the community needs pickleball courts, but we need to find the right location, we need to find a funding source for those. And I think putting another Band-Aid on this was not gonna make people happy.
Kelly, is there a motion that was generated?
Yeah, Seth recommended that you take it back to the, your entities to review the bid and to put it back out to bid in the spring, which would include the tennis court for resurfacing.
Do you still want to hold that? Is it
Well, that
similar?
was just information.
Okay.
So I think it's still worth holding that because I just want information on it. So I'm not saying we have to get bids out there. I'm just saying like, I think it's worth calling a company and saying, hey, if we send you pictures, I'm sure Jeff's got pictures, I'm sure Spicer has pictures, I'm sure numerous people have pictures. They might not even have to come, they could just look at it and see. So I'm good with that, but I will say while we're having this discussion, I think we should have some type of a discussion today on posting something on those courts because I am shocked by the number of people that still use them, and I don't think any of us really think that they're super safe. So people are playing on them, and there's a liability thing there if somebody gets injured because they're still open.
Yeah, that's up to the operations.
Yeah, I just feel like there needs to be a discussion on that because that is joint property.
So I'm hearing the motion may have been a recommendation, and Kelly, do you need that to be second or go through the motion? Do you need, what do you need for that?
I mean, there is a bid, or I mean, sorry, there is a motion that was made to review the current bid but to put it back out for bid, including tennis court resurfacing, was what the motion was. So you just want to amend that to just for information?
So when I said resurfacing or rebid, that was for the sidewalk rebid, but I'd like more information about the resurfacing options. So not necessarily a bid on the resurfacing.
Okay, I'll amend that.
If I could add something too, real quick. I did verbally have a conversation with Swiderski, and the reason they have their quote broken into these 3 categories, we asked them to do that, so that way, if we didn't want to move on the sidewalk or the restoration right now, and the demo was the priority, you have that, and they would honor that number just to do only that work, so.
Yeah, I'm concerned, Seth brings up a good point about safety. Could the construction or deconstruction of that area take place now, or would it have to wait till, they could do it now, couldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we could solve a safety issue and kind of put a flag in the ground of, hey, we've removed this, but we're discussing what to do next with it by getting it out of there. So we've solved the safety issue, we've moved on to the future, and that seems conducive to me, and break this bid up and maybe award part of this bid as if our entities are interested in that. I feel that. What do you think?
I think that's fair, and it also gives the Parks Commission more time to hear from the community and kind of recommend a direction for its final use.
Yeah.
In my mind, inexpensively, we could put up some sand volleyball pits and reduce how much topsoil we put out there in expense, and at least let it be used while we're trying to figure out what the end use is going to be and how to fund it.
And still have it useful for.
And still have it useful for something. I mean, the ladies from the teen center tell you there's people there every day using stuff and want more stuff to do there.
So I guess what this, what my discussion eliminates, though, is our ability to look into the reconstruction of courts are resurfacing. I guess it's up to us to make a collective decision. Do you think that idea is exhausted to rehab those courts, or is it viable? I mean, you've got two individuals here that, this is your profession.
We've had two different engineers look at it and conclude that they're not capable of renovation. We've had private contractors that specialize in this give us the same opinion. We brought the contractor up from when we did First Street and said, "What do you think?" And he said, "No way."
I imagine you didn't have to get out of the truck.
So I'd feel comfortable from a safety aspect of removing them and then continuing to work with the other groups to determine what the final use would be, and then rebidding the concrete or the sidewalk portion in the spring.
So it sounds like we have,
You were saying, wasn't it?
but it's.
Well, it is, but it isn't, because, like for me, I've had numerous taxpayers, not just in my district. I mean, there's lots of people on 8th Street that would like to see something go back there. And I don't know, I mean, personally, the sand volleyball thing, I mean, I don't have to live across the street from it, but all I can imagine is when those winds come, you're just gonna have sand blowing in people's yards and stuff. I don't know that makes sense to me, but again, I think we have to give citizens and the community the opportunity to weigh in on that. So for me, even voting to remove those right now, I can't support.
Well,
That.
yeah, I'm sorry, Seth. This is, again, we're going back to our entities with the recommendations.
Yeah.
We're not voting necessarily on our responsibility to remove them, but
Okay.
the financial decision of our entities.
Gotcha, okay. Yeah.
So on that, would we want so we've got the removal, so you got the first two items. Then, are we gonna go into the site grading and all that, or, I mean, we can't leave it at construction site.
Yeah.
So you've got, how many line items of work are in that? You've got,
Into the site grading, you're saying?
Well, there's 5 things listed what
Five
would have
things
to be
listed.
done.
Right.
so if we tore it down, but we needed to stabilize it, which two cover that?
I would probably say it's a portion of the 4th item, the site grading, because they put in their supply and install topsoil, which
Would be a
spotted
split.
at sand. Maybe you wouldn't have to have that. So we could ask them to revise this for making sure that it's a level area, but maybe not doing the topsoil and seed on it.
So you'd have the 12,800 for the full removal,
Right.
plus the 16,150.
Well, he's saying a portion of
A
it,
portion of it, though.
so they'd have to revise it. But I think too, even at the city council level, and I think that kind of depends on where MAPS comes in, on like what your contribution would be, because I think the city is gonna say, what's MAPS' contribution? Is it a 50-50 split, or because we did the furnace and you guys talked about maybe paying a little bit more for the removal? I think the council's gonna wanna know what that number looks like, what you guys are comfortable with.
Well, the covenant, our relationship
Yeah.
dictates what we contribute to
Right.
this project. So we would live up to what that says.
Right.
That would be, I think it's a split cost for this work. And then the recommendation is to split the cost on the furnace, so that would be generally, $4,235 or so, $36, that I would consider taking back to the school board for consideration. So it's half of this and half of that.
Okay.
Bill, does that sound accurate for responsibility?
And if you look at item 3, this is on the deed restrictions with Sands Park. So but I think, tennis courts, that's probably helps the school and the city.
Yeah, I thought
You
that
could
would
make
be-
arguments about pickleball or sand volley, but I guess it depends how the school looks at some of the uses there and how the city looks at some of the uses.
Either way, the demolition needs to occur. I think it's a different conversation related to what the outcome that we decided to be. This represents that what kind of school use would that expenditure be? Go ahead, Bill.
And I think that last sentence is kind of, it is up to the board, the proportional cost to be paid by the city and the school. So that's just kind of where the rubber meets the road with some of those the recommendation to each board from this board.
Yep. But, we have 4 tennis courts at First Street, and we could use 4 more tennis courts. And if I'm asking the board to contribute to what goes here, obviously we would want tennis courts, but because it contributes to our programming. I know that there's a great community demand, a United States world demand for pickleball courts, but the conduciveness and the intent kind of lines up for tennis courts. But we can have that conversation, doesn't need to be established today, and we can have that talk.
So we do have a motion out there, so I just need a support or not.
Is there a second for that motion?
Which is the,
To go back to your boards.
With
Kelly,
the
could you read
current
that?
bid, to review it with your boards, and then to get more information about resurfacing tennis courts.
And quotes in the spring on the sidewalk.
Right, taking everything back out to bid, yes, I'm sorry, to put back out to bid in the spring, which is it would be for everything in the bid, but,
I'm sure this bid would expire by then.
Yeah, I don't,
They didn't put that on there, but
You're thinking.
It would have to be addressed, yeah.
the only thing too, if the
didn't
board's recommending the bid out the concrete work in the spring, the
This
city
has to
does
be
have the
with no second.
Sixth Street project. I mean, economy of scale, we could maybe add that work to the Sixth Street project and maybe get a better price that way.
Yeah, we're gonna have a ton of contractors too, so.
Yeah, and the school project, right?
Yeah. So, do I have a second on that motion?
I'm still a little confused, to be honest with
Okay.
you.
All right.
So the motion is to go back to the 2 entities with a recommendation for,
with the bid from
with the bid we
Swiderski.
received, for consideration of the removal and restoration, but
With the understanding that you're going to put it back out to bid in the spring. Is that just the concrete work? I
That
didn't
was
get
my
that part.
understanding, because Jeff had said that, I believe, Swiderski's or whoever gave you this bid, said they thought they could do better on the concrete work in the spring.
yeah.
That number could be improved, so if we could save money, I don't know if anybody here would object to saving money.
I have no objection. But that, to me, that makes a lot of sense. So, and then there's other opportunities we could explore with the other projects. At least soliciting those contractors that are gonna be there.
So it's just the concrete work that's going back out to bid in the spring?
I think that's what the motion,
Okay.
That's what I intended.
the sidewalks are going out. We're gonna go forward with the other ones.
No, because we're gonna get,
You gotta go back to your boards. And we're
and
gonna get a little bit more information on if resurfacing's even an option.
what's the timeline for that information? When are we gonna say, we've had enough time to do that, or it got done?
Well, I think that should all be done before it goes back out to bid.
Well, then is Swiderski's bid gonna be good in February and March? I would assume that they'd wanna discuss that again.
Probably would want to discuss it. Usually they're pretty fair with keeping numbers that long.
They are, so I wanna be fair to them,
Yeah.
is my point.
so this is where I get confused, because if we are recommending, if this group is recommending to proceed with demolition, then, but we're also gonna explore or get information on renovation. Those are completely two different things.
Right, so my thing is, today, if you were asking me if I could vote for demolition, I'm not saying we're voting for that, but if I was asked to vote, I'd have to vote no, because I don't know that there's been enough community input at a city council level for that. I'd like to see it be like a work session item where we can get the community, those people that live around there, I think should have the opportunity to come in, weigh in on what they'd like to see. Or, you know, because if the council and everybody says, hey, we want to put sand volleyball courts there, and that's our intent, I think sometimes you have to know what you're gonna put there, because if we're gonna not put the grading there with all the topsoil, because we're thinking sand, that changes things. But if I lived across the street from it, I wouldn't want the sand blowing into my yard the whole time either. So that's kind of an issue if you're directly living across the street from it, versus if I live 10 streets away, that sand's not gonna touch my yard.
Well, I think we need to, normally, I don't like to do any demolition until we know what the future use is going to be, and that's funded in part of it. The reason why I think our group discussed and voted on demo at our last meeting was purely for the safety aspect of it. That the longer it stays, the more opportunity something bad could happen. So we were gonna move forward with the demo and then continue to work with Parks Commission, councils, boards, and to figure out what that end use was gonna be.
Because no matter what, the resurfacing and stuff, we figured it wasn't gonna work. So it was like, it has to be removed, even if it goes backward, it still needs to be removed. So we've taken that chunk out, and then you can decide next what to do with it.
And I may suggest that we take the bid minus the sidewalks as presented and topsoil and seed it.
That would be my recommendation.
That's, if this motion doesn't go, that, I'm telegraphing, that's what we should do. And if sand needs to be added, if that's something that's done through a process, we'll do that later, but let's restore that to green grass and continue to work through our entities on what the future is. But I feel we've had the experts look at this and provide us information to know about being restored. And so I think we're ready to get it out of there.
Yeah, from my perspective, I've heard enough of the experts say renovation's not an option. And even one of the top funding sources that's available for recreation in Manistee County has formed their own group and studied this and said, we're not willing to invest in any restoration because that facility's too far gone. I might suggest that we have Spicer revise the scope to take the physical, I would grade it, but not physically put the concrete in there yet, and request some updated quotes that we can then take back so that it's a little more streamlined, a little more clear. And if the fourth line item currently includes some items that we may not have to pay for, then I would want to know that before I put that before city council or probably, a school board.
I thought that due diligence was completed, so, but I agree, if you feel this can be refined and put together better.
Well, we were hoping that we would have 4 prices before today, and that those 4 prices, we could then make a decision on the low bid, and is this a good price or not?
What was your recommendation with this today for us then? What, you brought this forward, what did you want us to do with it?
Well, we put it on the agenda, and we didn't receive, we just got one, this morning that said.
I didn't
we're
know,
opting not to-
the only reason I knew it was a single bid is because it came that way. I didn't know. I thought it was the lowest bid or.
No, we had not received the other pricing.
Do I have I'm sorry.
One of them responded today.
Yeah, they
They
said
just said-
didn't have enough time to supply the quote, so.
So we have a motion. I didn't hear a second. So I'm saying that's dead. And we have a discussion going related to maybe refining the bid process. And I don't think we need a motion for that. And let's move on.
Okay.
So we're refining the,
I think it's just the removal portion, because I heard that we were considering the cement and the sidewalk for a future
Right.
a rebid or, getting together with contractors that will be on site for bond to see if they may be interested in bidding on this also. So,
We want to make it green.
At a minimum.
at a minimal cost, so he'll.
Cloaked in green, and then we can take it from there however we need to go.
I think we've covered sidewalk on Robinson Street discussion. Without any other thoughts, we can
That's-
talk about
Just one last,
public comment. Yeah, Bill.
I think we could, and Jeff, for the discussion today, since we're not moving forward with the demo, we talked about safety, maybe putting a chain and lock on it in the meantime would be a good idea. So.
I'll have to, it'd be tough because the whole west side is open.
The whole west side is.
It's not fenced.
Can we post a sign or something that says,
Yeah, I don't
like,
think that
no
would be-
trespassing or like
Area
unsafe?
Yeah,
Yeah.
area close, I think so, yep. It's a good idea.
I mean, I'm a little surprised. I mean, like, if I went there, I would just think, well, these aren't usable. But I mean, I've seen people with their baby stroller up there and they're playing tennis and the kids are off to the side. And it's just like, I'm a little surprised that people still use them as much as they do. But they do. So,
Could we get that update? You know, I don't want this to wait for 2 months before we get to that demolition is, I mean, can we get that turned around quick and have something that we can take back?
Yeah, what would the timeline be that you would be looking for?
Well, sooner than later.
What is your timeline that you recommend?
I think they could probably break out here, what the board's talked about was breaking out the sidewalk grading and the site grading into their individual lines, right? And I think probably within a week or two, I could have them do that for us. Essentially, it would be the same prices, we would see the breakdown of that.
And they'll be soliciting for bids, part of that process, or are you just asking the one bidder to?
I can continue to reach out to the contractors and say that they have a few more weeks to.
Yeah,
I think we can clarify the scope a little bit more and we can extend that bid opportunity and maybe we'll get some additional competitive
well,
quotes.
and with bids, I think Ron made a good point. I mean, they've got a lot of construction that's going to be happening. So maybe if we haven't explored some of their contractors' potential interest, it might be worth seeing if some of those people are going to be there doing work anyways, if they want to add a little extra, where those bids might come in.
Yeah,
at.
we haven't bid out the 6th Street rehab yet, and I don't think you've bid out your site plan package yet, have you?
Yeah,
You have?
Everything's been up.
That's been awarded?
yep,
Yep.
Okay.
that was,
So we can do
Sikorsky's local, yep.
Yep.
So you'll communicate, Kelly, to the committee as things get wrapped up in that process?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, but we want that sooner than later, so we need to probably get together here shortly
Well,
after.
she'll
we do
communicate
that.
when it's done, and then we'll schedule a meeting.
Yeah, we'll shoot for sometime in December. Is that what we're, okay.
Any more discussion? Appreciate the dialogue. Public comment?
I'm just gonna speak quickly on the easement. There's probably more problems with easements than any other transaction in real estate. Let's not take that lightly. It's in a park, and do some due diligence on that. It's a 5x5 piece that they've requested. I say, is it gonna be underground? And Ron, you asked that for the safety hazard. Could we see one that's already in existence somewhere? Are they gonna be accessing it for something else to read these gauges, or if they have anything on it? Will it be in the way of your turnaround? Are we just granting it for that one particular thing, or are we granting it for the entire space? And I know it's not a big space, but we're quick to grant an easement and not ask the details. And can they use it for something else? Once we give them that, you give an easement, and unless we specify that it's only for this one particular thing, like a utility easement is usually for one particular thing at one particular spot. But I think we want to do our due diligence, because I don't think anybody could say that the Hampton easement was an asset to our parks. That, I know it was necessary, and it was on city property, not the Hampton property, but we granted that. And it hasn't been an overall improvement, that gully thing, to our park. And that could be a potential safety hazard after a heavy rain. So I thought, let's just protect the schools and Sands Park and protect the parks.
Yeah, thank you. And-
I know you're concerned with that.
Yeah, and whose property is it actually on needs to be determined also.
Yes.
If it isn't,
Yes.
it's on us or in the park.
Or if it's a joint one, or,
I need clarity so I can communicate to the board that item too.
Well,
I think Jeff committed to getting some more details, so before I present it to the board, I'll be looking for Jeff to give me some of the answers I need.
Jeff, didn't you say you
yeah, just the details. Go over the details, because an easement sounds really good.
get whatever
in it,
he
and Lucas can probably see that, and in real
they
estate
could see
costs
that
more,
council and they could see it as a school,
right? Those easements
what
can.
that
I
uses.
just-
And restrictions are developed by our council. And
Yes.
will not be absent from
Get a
this
copy of that.
process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that furnace,
Okay.
It's in-
and we recently had bought a furnace a while back, and short time ago. That bid seems a little bit high. Just a public comment, that, are we getting air with that? And did we get 3 bids? And,
Let's see.
I thought that, we bought a boiler, and boilers are a lot more tricky, and it's not in a new build. It's in an open, one basically square room with a couple little, but I thought that bid seemed quite high, so just my input, nothing concrete. And the building is used in the summer. So at that price, maybe they did include air too, but the air would then probably take some, an additional, venting on the system and everything, but maybe they are including the air, which wouldn't be a bad suggestion for that place. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Any other public comment?
Hi, I'm Robert Archie. I'm the president of the Manistee Pickleball Association. I think you all probably received an email, but I just wanted to come and say my main focus for the association is to expand pickleball, obviously, in the city if we can. We do have Parkdale, which we all are aware of, but the city itself doesn't have pickleball available. And we knew that Sand Park was a possibility and still possibly could be used down the road or renovated. We don't know all that yet. But I just wanted to say that that's what we're looking for in the city, is to expand pickleball, because pickleball is expanding so rapidly in our area. And I sent you some numbers the other day about, I think we had 159 residents that are in Manistee itself that are members of our group. But those are taken at winter months. We don't ever take people from the summer months group, because we don't keep track of any of that. And we know those numbers are far greater in the summer than they are during the winter months. Because we play at the Armory, we record everything. We know everybody that comes in and everybody that's coming in from outside and inside, but of the area. But we don't know that for the outside. And we do know, though, that it has just gradually been growing and growing and growing and growing, and to the point where we started off, like this year in the summer, we started off running 3 days a week, and we ended up running 6 days a week just because we had too many people. We just couldn't, people would come and show up, and there was just no courts for them to play, so they'd leave. And then during the winter, we do have other courts around the area that people can go to. We use free soil. Some people go down as far as to Ludington to the college and use courts there. Arcadia has a court that we use up there. We have the Bible camp in Onekama. So we do have some courts, and those are all full now too. So not only is it great looking for outdoor courts down the road, we're probably going to try and look for some better indoor facilities, because the most we can get right now is at the Armory is 4 courts. And we are overcrowded with those 4 courts right now. On a Saturday especially, we play games, the games normally go to 11, we play games to 9, just so we can keep people moving, because we have so much demand on it in there. And we'll lose some of that now because we have some of the snowbirds that head south, so it will kind of drop off a little bit. And although we played yesterday, we had, I think we had close to 30 yesterday, which is a big number for us at the Armory. So it keeps growing. We looked at Sand Park when I knew this. Pat actually brought it to my attention that Sand Park was a possibility that maybe we could bring some of that. So you have tennis courts out at the First Street, and I know that there were some comments about being maybe pickleball out there. The biggest problem that we had with pickleball being out there was the sand. Blowing sand on a pickleball court, probably on a tennis court too, is an issue. But anytime that you stop and you slide, it's a real problem. So Sand Park, even though the name says sand, it's a little better area because it's a little bit more protected. It's actually even more protected than the Parkdale courts are. And we do have quite a bit of a problem during the summer sometimes with the way those courts are laid in there, that the wind comes across them and creates kind of a problem for us. Sometimes that's kind of fun too, but I should say it's all negative. So I understand what you're saying about the being so bad and so cracked, because we had to kind of work with that at the Parkdale courts as well. And they are bad. And Jeff, I had a question for you. Are they concrete underneath and then asphalt over the top of those, or are they just asphalt only?
At Sands Park, they were built at different times, and there's different construction in both.
Okay.
So I think one's a concrete and one is asphalt.
Asphalt, yeah.
The courts down at First Street are concrete.
Okay. Yeah, because the one that's to the north there looks like it's the worst of the bunch.
Yes.
And from what I can see, and that's probably the one that's asphalt, I'm guessing.
Yes.
So, and I know that you can, if you have asphalt over concrete, sometimes can be rejuvenated a bit because you can grind that asphalt off and you work with your base then and just fill that. But anyway, that's my intention, is to hopefully bring, as much pickleball as we can to the city. And that's, as I said in my email to you, I think it brings a lot of people into the community. It's a good thing. And tournaments are something that we really can't do at Sand Park, because although we have done them, but it's not, you can't sanction it because you have to have a minimum of 8 courts to be able to do that. But, and I'll let Pat touch on that a little bit, because we got some feedback from Ludington, because they do run tournaments and they have enough courts down there to do that. Their courts are on school property as well. And so that's another thing that, maybe we can give some thought to too. And one last thing that I wanted to mention is that the Manistee area schools have come to us and asked us to help develop a pickleball program for the school system. So they're very interested in adding that somewhere down the road with their criteria. And I think we're seeing that nationwide. It's just really booming. And it's a great sport because all ages can play. I don't care what age you are. We've got players right now that are 85, and I think 85 might be the oldest one we have right now.
You get it free.
Yeah. Indoor, as soon as you hit 80, you can play for free. And some of those guys, I don't know if they should be playing for free because they're pretty darn good. So anyway, that's what my 2 cents worth was, and I'll turn it over to Pat because she's got some stuff more to add to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. My name is Pat Beach, and I was a former member of the original group that started the Parkdale pickleball courts. So I'm very familiar with the area, how we started. I wasn't there when the pickleball people came to you and said, we wanted all pickleball. On that note, I have seen some pickleball tennis courts where part of it is tennis and part of it is pickle, and seems to work out pretty good. So I don't know why they weren't going to choose that option, but I think that the group that we have now would be receptive to looking at that at least. I was president of the Pickleball Association for several years during COVID, which was not very nice, but we managed to get through that, and pickleball has grown as Bob said. What I wanted to talk about was a vision, and that is that, and Bill knows about this, that we were part of the primary group. 6 people got together at 440 West and said, let's have a cross-country ski area at the Big N. We got together, 6 of us. We ended up with probably 50 people that were involved in that renovation, and they also contributed financially. That vision, which was small at the time, turned into a bigger vision, which you all know now. It's a place for people to actually get involved with races. I think they're running races in the summertime. We went out there and saw them. They were huge, huge races out there, and then also bicycling. They have bicycling courses out there. So it turned into much more than just a cross-country snow skiing area. So my vision here, and also I wanted to talk also about the vision of the Riverwalk. There were a group of JCs that said, let's go down and clean, 40 years ago, let's go down and clean that Riverwalk out, because it would be beautiful to have that into something more than just junk back there. So a bunch of us got together, we cleaned it up, and after that, all those funds came in, which was wonderful, to get that Riverwalk, which has been beautiful for the city, and the city has contributed significantly to that. And it's gorgeous, but it all started out with some people going down there just pulling weeds and getting the trash out of there, all right? So my vision for pickleball is that it is a sport that everybody can play, from teenagers to 85-year-olds. And I've seen it everywhere. We've been to Florida, we've been to other places, large number of people, not just retirees. So that is my vision for pickleball. And I also see that Manistee, with all its visitors and it's all its retirees coming into the area, that it would be a great place to have a pickleball court here in the city of Manistee. The reason I say we need one for 8 courts is because it can generate money for the schools in the city. I just talked to the people that organize the tournaments over in Ludington, which is very close to our population. They have 8 courts on the school grounds, and they pulled in about $17,000 for one tournament, all right? And that's after all costs. That's what he said. All right, so what does that say to me? School needs money, city needs money, way to make money. It's a win-win situation, win for the pickleball, win for you guys, all right? So that's, the other part of it is that I would like a delay in the destruction of the courts right now, just because I think that we can have the Parks Association here, and I think that that would be if they're willing to do that, to investigate the potential places in Manistee where we could have a pickleball court, including Sands Park, and then come back with that information to you so that it's not a difficult decision to make. Right now, I don't really have a lot of information on a 2023 decision that those pickleball courts, all of the pickleball courts, all the tennis courts at Sands Park need to be destroyed. So I would like to see that in writing from the entities that maybe the Parks Department could put together. And also other places in Manistee. I know some people have talked about Fifth Avenue. I went down there and looked at Fifth Avenue. It's concrete, which is wonderful, but sand all over, which makes it very, very difficult for people, safety-wise, to play pickleball. They'd be slipping and sliding. We'd have a lot of injuries. So it's not a good place. But again, let's look at it. Let's look at it. Maybe there's a way that it could be. But again, when I look at it, there's only 6 courts that could possibly come out of there, which would not create money for the city or the school, which I'm in the business of trying to create for you, all right? So those are the things that I think are important, and also I want to talk about the negatives that I've heard in the community, one being noise. I did go online, I did check on with other people who have built courts, and they said you can get noise barriers for that, all right? And the other thing that you can do is that you can have stated hours that do not interfere with nighttime or morning. The other thing I looked up was what the decibels are for pickleball versus playground. And the amount of noise in a playground, believe it or not, is more than pickleball. So the amount of playground noise that is heard in the school time period or after school when they're playing in the field or whatever is actually higher than the noise for pickleball. But if there's a concern about noise, we can put noise barriers up, if Sands Park is a place. But that I don't know, and I guess I'm saying, if I don't know it, why don't we have some kind of a assessment done, brought forward, and your concerns about it not being viable, maybe there is in 2023 a way that half of that courts could be viable, and you would only have to destroy the other part, which would mean less money for you to put out as a county, as a city. All right, so that's just some of the things I'm throwing out here, because I do feel that I don't feel that that we need to move forward so fast, that we need to have some discussion on the differences of what we can do and what we can't do, and then go forward on that. And it may not involve the school at all, but I sure would like to see the school get some money for those tournaments. All right? That's what I'm looking at. And does anybody have any questions to me about pickleball and the thoughts that you may have that maybe I haven't addressed?
I have one, and maybe you've heard something in your conversations with your fellow players, or even you, Mr. Archie. You know, Ludington's complex is incredible.
It is incredible.
But how are they finding revenue sources to construct those? Have you guys had any of those conversations, or
Oh, yeah.
or asked how other communities are?
Well, you know, in pickleball, in Parkdale, we went out and got revenue sources, one of them being the grant you talked about,
Sure.
right? And we also went to the casino. We went to some of the businesses around where the pickleballs were going to be located and asked for donations from them. One of the businesses donated, what, $5,000? 10 grand for the court, because they were very close to where the court was. And so we can fundraise, we can get grants, and then we would expect, of course, the city to plug some money in as well. But it can be done. It can be done.
Yeah, when I look at the numbers well, they were older numbers, but the numbers that Spicer had put together, 4 tennis courts is what, $230,000 for new, and that footprint is exactly what 6 pickleball courts could be built for, because isn't that what you have in Manistee Township is 6? Yeah. So you
6
converted those over to get 6. So
right, correct.
You know, it's just a real high capital cost. And I've been working, even before the pickleball, I've been working with the tennis people in the community, trying to find a funding source to make something like this happen.
Well, you know, we probably could fund it through that, and then we could pay back to the city and the schools for the different kinds of tournaments we could have, and then we could help you with that cost down the road. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, everyone. I'm not a meeting person, so it's hard for me to sit. We're all on the same page. Jeff, you said it right. There's no consensus in what we're going to do with that property once the demolition has occurred. And that's been my observation about many things. And so that's why the Parks Commission established committees to evaluate maintenance, capital improvements, and activities, and try to present information that would be helpful to make decisions in budgeting for the coming year. So our goal is to establish the information that's necessary and answer the questions that you had about financing. Now, you've already got bids on how much money it would take to provide the tennis courts. And we've all acknowledged from time to time the various possible locations, but we need to have a very organized approach to this and evaluate each location, costs, you name it. We're just at the beginning stage. We've already had one meeting with the capital improvements, and so people are ready to go. I think one of the things that would have been helpful in our presentation as an audience member would have been to see the documentation of the fact that, it's just impossible to renovate those courts. People who have been with this story already are comfortable with that. Those, like Mr. Archie, for example, had some new ideas that none of us had heard. And the other problem is that when you walk out in the courts, you look at them, they look like they're possible for renovation. And especially when you look at what's going on and what people have done in other areas, and you see what has happened, and you can see this on YouTube. So a documentation of this, I think you would have had a go signal with proper documentation that you presented today. I mean, it would have been like that, I think. Basically, the Parks Commission has got the committees that are really looking into us, and you've got people like me who are retired. We have somebody on our Capital Improvements Committee, who was a city treasurer. And she's done grants. I've done grants for the city of Manistee. So we can do the grunt work on a lot of this stuff that you folks don't have the time to do. Thank you.
I want to add one more thing. Our association is a nonprofit association. So every year we take donations from players. We also have a donation box that we have at the courts. This is the outside courts now. And every year we then take the money that we've collected, which is substantial. I'm thinking it's probably pretty close to 10 grand this year. And that we give to the Parkdale courts, and that's to help maintain the courts and so on. We have a few cracks over there that this spring we'll go ahead and they'll put some money. We'll do some of the grunt work with that, just sweeping and cleaning and stuff like that, but they'll have some people come in and fill a few of the cracks and so on. So we continually do that. And if we end up doing, our association, if we ended up with Manistee and having pickleball, I'm assuming pretty much that we would probably do the same thing there, is that we would try to keep continuing to put money and funnel it back into the city for maintenance on that. So that's all I had to add.
As far as donations, when I was reviewing other cities and what they do with their budgeting for parks and, total overall city budgets, one of the things that I noticed was that in Cadillac, one donor donated $100,000 towards pickleball courts. So there's money out there. We just have to get going and we'll get it done.
Any other public comment? I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
There's two freighters coming through around 4 o'clock, so if you gotta be on one side or the other, get there before 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.